Welcome back. In today's video, I want to talk about what's happening right now regarding brand new home construction of apartment buildings as well as single family houses as well on a national level. I'll break it down by each of the four major regions as well, which is the Northeast, the Midwest, the South, and the West as well. This will give us some indication about what lies ahead regarding inventory levels in the months ahead here. Because of course, for existing houses, we're down by about 50% of inventory levels compared to pre-COVID levels, but inventory levels of new home construction is up greatly here. So in today's video, I'm providing an update for you guys regarding that, and also provide some predictions of what the data tells us regarding are we going to see a surge of inventory of new houses, or are we going to see just the opposite here? So I have a lot to share in today's video. Let's begin today's video here. Sorry to be redundant. This report here is from the US Census Bureau. The most recent trends they have is actually for the month of July here. So let's first talk about permits being pulled, and then we'll talk about housing starts, the number of houses under construction, as well as the number of houses completed. Again, let's talk about permits being pulled right now. So what I'm more focused on is single family houses, which is this right here. But let's first talk about the total number of permits being authorized right now, which includes single family plus multifamily. And by the way, this table right here is in thousands of units, and also it's seasonally adjusted, and also it's annualized as well. So for example, total permits pulled was 1,442,000 at the current pace back in July. That is more or less flat compared to June, but a fairly significant decrease, down by 13% on a year-over-year basis. For single family houses that were permits being pulled for that, it was at 930,000, a small gain of 0.6% from last month, and also a small increase of 1.3% from 1 year ago. In contrast, look at 5 units or more. These are apartment buildings to rent out, down 32.2% year over year, compared to the small gain of 1.3% for single family houses. So in regards to new single family houses in which the builder pulled permits for that, permits pulled have risen so far this year, but more recently has started to flatten out here. It's also still down by 18% year to date as well, which I'll share that with you right now. So look at the year to date change in 2022. This was January 2022 through July of 2022 compared to January this year through July this year. So year to date now compared to year to date last year is a decrease of 18.5%. So even though permits pulled increased by 1.3% from last year, year to date, they're still down by nearly 19%. So here's a chart over the past 12 months, according to our good Uncle Fred here. And the source here is the Census Bureau as well as HUD. As you can see here, permits pulled for new single family houses has been increasing ever since February, but in July, it is more or less flat compared to the previous month. In my personal opinion, the reason for this small increase is because rates have increased to around 7%, which is making some home builders, or I should say builders in general, being more pessimistic regarding building new single family houses right now. When I zoom out over the past 5 years here, at the current pace right now at 930,000, this is much higher compared to January, but much lower compared to January last year, when permits pulled on a seasonally adjusted annualized basis was about 1.2 million. Additionally, when looking at pre-COVID levels back in, let's call it February 2020, there was 986,000 versus 930,000 this year. Going back to this chart from the Census Bureau here, what I found to be interesting as well is that the stats tend to vary greatly by the region. What I mean by that is that in the South and also in the West, they saw a gain of over 3%, 3.7 in the West, and a gain of 4.4% in the South. In contrast though, in the Midwest, it fell by 5.7%, and the Northeast saw a decrease of 19% year over year. I also want to discuss the number of housing starts as well. A housing start is a beginning phase of the construction of a brand new house. And these numbers, again, are also seasonally adjusted and also annualized as well. So for new single-family houses started, it was a gain of 6.7% from last month and an increase of 9.5% from 12 months ago. In my personal opinion, this is a reason why this has been increasing is likely due to a relatively low number of existing houses for sale, which is causing some home builders or home builders in general to kind of fill that void regarding a lack of homes for sale here. I say this to a certain degree, but the rise in rates of over 7% is also causing home builders to not surge or not increase the number of housing starts at a great level as well, though. What I mean by this is that we're not seeing a giant increase in the number of housing starts due to the fact, in my personal opinion, because rates have increased so much this year as well. Regarding each of these regions here, again, they vary greatly here on a month-to-month basis and also on a year-over-year basis. However, though, in the Northeast, they fell by nearly 22% from last year, but in the West, a giant increase of over 20% from last month and from 1 year ago. What's pretty wild about this is that even though housing starts are up by 24% from 12 months ago, when looking at the year-to-date numbers in the West, it's down by 29.3%. Additionally, when looking at the nation as a whole, housing starts for new single-family houses is down by 17.4%. So the decrease in housing starts that we saw in the first half this year is actually causing these year-to-date numbers to be a lot more negative compared to these figures above here. I also want to share with you guys the number of units under construction right now. So these numbers right here are in thousands of units, and they're also seasonally adjusted, but they are not annualized here. So total houses or total units under construction is more or less flat on a year-over-year basis, as well as compared to 1 month ago. For new single-family houses that are under construction, down by 0.7% from last month, and a fairly big decrease down by 17% from 12 months ago. This is something wild as well. As I note right there, the number of houses under construction has decreased for 14 consecutive months. It peaked last May at 831,000. Now it's at 678,000. So it's been decreasing substantially since more or less June last year. However, when looking at pre-pandemic levels, the current level at 678,000 is still very much high. As you can see right here, the number of houses under construction for new single-family houses has been more or less decreasing. Let me actually just go back over the past 5 years here. Has been decreasing ever since really June 2022. But looking at pre-pandemic levels at 678,000, this is much higher compared to February 2020 at 531,000. When I zoom out going back to 2000, we can see how high these levels are. So the current levels at 678,000 are the highest pre-pandemic levels going back to August of 2007. So even though the number of houses under construction has been decreasing for 14 consecutive months, it's still on par with the highest pre-pandemic levels going back to August of 2007. When looking at each of the 4 major regions, we can see some very big differences here. So for example, in the Northeast, they saw a gain of 8.2% from July 2022, whereas the Midwest, the South, as well as the West, experienced a decrease of at least 18%. Also, take a look at this because the number of houses under construction that were actually multifamily are at all-time record highs. 986,000 is the highest levels in at least the past 50 years, as far back as the Census Bureau's data goes here. These are buildings that have at least 5 units or more. Keep in mind, these numbers right here are actually apartment buildings in order to rent out. Therefore, the completion of these units should help with rent prices as well. It typically takes over a year to complete a multifamily apartment building. So therefore, we should expect these completions to decrease rent prices in the months ahead here. If you guys are curious regarding the chart showing the number of apartment buildings under construction right now, here you go. Going back to 1970 at 986,000, that's an all-time record high, and also higher back in mid-1970s when we had around 900,000. And this again will put downward pressure on rent prices in the months ahead as well. Going back to the census report here, here's a look at the number of units completed. So when looking at single-family houses that have been completed, it's more or less flat from last month and also from 1 year ago. But in contrast, for 5 units or more, a giant decrease of 38.8% from last month and a giant decrease of 23.3% from 1 year ago. These numbers will actually be a lot different in the months ahead here because we're going to see multifamily completions coming later this year as well as in 2024 due to a record number under construction. All right, that was a lot of information to cover in today's video. So here's a summary and also my own analysis regarding what these numbers really mean, right? So regarding the number of permits being pulled for new single-family houses, again, seasonally adjusted and also annualized as well, a gain of 0.6% compared to last month, the 6th consecutive monthly increase, but more or less flat this July, likely due to mortgage rates increasing to around 7%. Also, permits pulled increased only by 1.3% year over year, but still down by 18% year to date. For 5 units or more, it decreased a whopping 32%. Therefore, this suggests that home builders are less confident regarding multifamily construction, likely from record high numbers under construction, and of course, due to rents softening as well. Regarding single family construction, developers are starting to slow down on starting new projects, as can be seen by the small increase of permits being pulled last month. In regards to housing starts, on a seasonally adjusted and analyzed number here, it was a gain of 6.7% from the previous month and was up by 9.5% from July of 2022 for single family. This is somewhat supported due to historically low levels of existing houses for sale. However, though, the number of houses starting or housing starts is not surging though, due, in my personal opinion, due to the rise in rates as well. In regards to 5 units plus, it's flat from last month and also from 1 year ago. In regards to the number of units under construction, for new single-family houses, we saw the 14th consecutive monthly decrease, falling ever since June of 2022. However, though, we're still at the highest pre-COVID levels going back to August of 2007. Part of that rise was due to construction delays. In other words, houses taking longer to build compared to pre-COVID levels. Now, here's something that's really important as well, because I don't want you guys to think that, all these houses under construction, once they're completed and once the builder lists them for sale, that's going to crash our housing market. This is because builders sell their houses as dirt lots, houses under construction, or completed houses. And a lot of builders, frankly, just have a dirt lot. They wait for a home builder to place a deposit down, then they start building the house here. So therefore, this does not mean the number of houses for sale or inventory levels will skyrocket when a house is completed. In other words, many are already in a contract with a home buyer. In fact, the number of completed houses for sale in the US, based on data from the Census Bureau, at 75,000 only represents 17% of total home sales or total houses for sale of new houses at 437,000. So we have, for July, 437,000 new single-family houses for sale. But these are dirt lots, houses under construction, as well as completed houses. And those completed houses that are for sale only represent 17% of the total number of new single-family houses for sale. Again, dirt lots, houses under construction also completed houses as well. Therefore, developers don't suddenly list their house for sale once it's completed. And in fact, a lot of builders list their homes for sale when it actually is a dirt lot, and the home builder or home buyer places a deposit down on that lot. And also, as a note right here, instead, home builders sell their houses during all phases of construction. So big picture here is my biggest takeaways regarding the trends we're seeing right now and what this really means for a U.S. housing market. And of course, I'd love to hear from you guys as well. So please send me a comment below with your thoughts as well. So in my opinion here, the data in today's video shows that home builders appear to be getting more pessimistic regarding the development of houses as well as apartment buildings, as can be seen by the slowing number of permits being pulled, and also based on the National Association of Home Builders showing that builder confidence for building new single-family houses decreased for the month of August. Also, housing starts are up slightly for houses, but flat for multifamily. And also as well, overall, single-family housing construction is being supported by historically low levels of existing houses for sale. However, though, rates at around 7% for an average 30-year fixed rate loan for people with great credit poses a big challenge for home builders as well as home buyers as well. On top of this, we're not seeing a surge of permits being pulled or housing starts for single family. Therefore, it appears that home builders are being more cautious, as they should be, and that should limit completions and inventory levels of new houses in the months ahead. Something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on personally, though, is that the number of houses that are completed that are for sale, because that would be a key sign regarding, are builders doing well? Are they selling their houses, or are they building houses and not being able to sell them? The current levels right now at around 17% of all new single-family houses is still a relatively low share, but will that change given the fact that rates today are around 7+%? So please leave me a comment below with your biggest takeaways from today's video. I appreciate you. Hope you have an awesome day. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.